Hello again, everyone. This is Stu Ellis with your Illinois Corn Connection, and today we're talking with John Osthus. John is an independent researcher for Blue Spring. Blue Spring what connections?
Blue
Blue
Spring
Spring.
Communications, Research and Marketing.
Blue Spring Communications Research and Marketing, and you have found some fascinating data that some people will say, "I never knew that." Others will say, "Oh, that sounds pretty reasonable," and others will say, "Wow." So that's what we want to get to today because it could be, for some, just an eye-opening experience. And this is for some fabulous news for folks who would like to see more corn consumption, and particularly with livestock consumption. Tell me where all of this started. How did all this begin, John?
Well, it started when when I was in marketing. I got to work with a bunch of scientists from universities and commercial organizations, and we were doing work for the soybean checkoff on protein improvement. And after that program ended, the science team kept going with the work, and they found that there's a connection between natural feed, corn demand, and livestock emissions. And so we took off on that and pursued it and found there's some really good news to share.
Between natural feed,
Yes, sir.
okay, corn demand,
Mm-hmm.
and livestock emissions.
Mm-hmm. They're all
Most
connected.
farmers may not be concerned about the latter, but I know some people will be
Sure.
somewhere along the line.
Sure.
Well, so what is the connection? And I'm assuming this is all what livestock will consume as far as corn and soybean meal. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, what scientists found out is that natural feed it increases farm revenue, and it also increases livestock health. The increased farm revenue comes, excuse me, the increased farm revenue comes from increased corn demand, and the corn-soy combination is healthier for the livestock, and it also reduces emissions of CO2, nitrogen, and methane. So this is an opportunity for everybody to win if we put our heads together.
Now, a lot of farmers are going to say, well, I've fed corn and soybean meal all my life. My dad did that, my grandpa did that.
Yeah.
But what is different or new about what you have found out?
Well, it's different and new in the light of that in this modern age, it's still possible to integrate crops and livestock into an integrated approach. Like when my father farmed, the crops, livestock were all connected. The farmer fed their own livestock. Now that's been separated in a lot of cases, and this discovery is a chance to bring crop, livestock, and ecosystem people together to solve common challenges and win together.
Now we're talking about regular corn, regular field, commercial field corn.
Yeah,
Okay, that
yeah.
any hog, cow, chicken would eat.
They love them. Yeah.
Okay, now with soybeans, are we talking about just regular soybean meal that's ground up soybeans,
Yeah, what happens is the soybean meal provides protein,
right?
and with the corn you have the protein and the energy that the livestock need, and with the vitamins and some synthetic amino acids, you have a really good recipe for farm revenue, livestock, and ecosystems.
All right, but we've been doing this for a long time. Tell me what's new about this.
What's new about this is around 2020, Argonne National Labs and livestock nutritionists did some analysis of the emissions intensity of feed. That information didn't exist until relatively recently. And so by understanding how different feed ingredients affect farm revenue and ecosystems, it's possible to optimize both worlds.
Okay. Should farmers be concerned about the ecosystem in this regard of what livestock emissions are?
Well, my belief is farmers have always been concerned about ecosystems.
Right.
They just don't get credit for it. In this case, the natural feed that they sell automatically protects the ecosystems because corn and soybeans have lower emissions intensity than DDGs or synthetic amino acids. So we're not talking about like eliminating those, but it's just a matter of using natural feed, again, has natural benefits for the whole system.
So
Prioritizing it where protein is low especially is good to do.
So we're maybe raising the content percentage of the soybean meal and the corn, what are we? How are we? How are we changing our livestock nutritional diet?
That's a great question. The way to change it is to be aware of the benefits of the natural feed and just boost that a little bit more. For example, a researcher in Iowa showed us that if you increase soybean protein from 44% up toward 48 or 50, that you automatically sell a couple hundred pounds more corn, and the emissions reduce as a natural consequence of that.
Okay, so the higher the protein in the soybean meal that we're feeding,
Mm-hmm.
the more corn that animal will eat.
Yes. And there's a lot of one of the challenges with this discovery is the regional variations. There are natural regional variations in everything with agriculture. And so what's happening is some areas are already taking advantage of this because they have had naturally high protein, but the farmers and the livestock producers who are applying this discovery without knowing it are actually implementing the discovery. It's not like some people have said this is theoretical, and that's really like saying that gravity is theoretical. It's actually working today. You just have to see it.
Okay, so what we need to do, or if to be able to achieve higher consumption, higher livestock consumption of corn. Okay, we need to make sure that it is combined with the highest possible protein value in the soy meal.
Yeah, they work together. It's interesting, actually, for thousands of years, Native Americans have grown corn and beans and squash together. They call them the Three Sisters. They knew intuitively that corn and beans work together to, like the soybeans nourish the corn, and the squash shades the soil for the corn and the beans. We can't do that today because the combine heads won't let it. You'd have to change combine heads. But it turns out that what Native Americans knew intuitively in the field still applies in the livestock as well. It's
Oh,
kind of an interesting connection.
okay, how high does this? Well, if we bought soybean meal to put in a livestock nutrition, we're maybe going to get what, 44%, or do we need to be higher than that? Apparently.
What happened is that high protein soybean meal in Iowa went from 48% to 44%. All it takes is to, like in regions where that's happening, to just heavy up on the soybean protein, and then the corn demand increases automatically.
Okay, so we're going to feed meal with higher protein content.
Mm-hmm.
How high are we talking about? Apparently more than 44.
Yeah, what the agronomists tell me is that 48% is possible today
Yeah.
with current technology, and 50% protein is possible with improved breeding and seed selection. And so
Okay.
it just depends on how far along that continuum you want to go. In Iowa, for example, it's very possible to feed higher protein meal and trigger this effect.
Now, the key question is some farmers are going to say, well, what is the cost here? Is the cost going to benefit me? Am I going to get any more? Am I going to, what am I going to do that's the economic part of it that most people would be concerned about?
Well, the good news is that the way the chemistry and physics works in the marketplace by selecting the highest quality natural feed possible, or growing the highest quality natural feed possible, what happens is through the natural consequences of physics and chemistry, that automatically drives increased corn demand. So for a farmer to look at it as a system again and realize that their corn and their soy are connected, they're not actually separate like they seem to be, they work together in the marketplace. And that insight can be very powerful for their bottom line. It also affects, there's also, according to USDA, basis, about 15% of basis is related to quality as well. And when we were doing the earlier work, scientists told me as much as $600 million a year is being lost because of bases. This kind of a discovery can help that as well.
Okay. So the ultimate goal that we're achieving is if we feed higher protein soybean meal, we're going to see livestock that's going to be consuming more corn, and that extra demand should hopefully increase the price of corn then.
Right, and the good news is this is already happening. Like if we look at the 2008 research from, I think it was Dairy Management Inc. and Dr. Juan Tricarico, they found in 2008 that the use of the substitutes for natural feed varies widely throughout the country. So in areas of the country where natural feed is already being prioritized, where corn, soy, silage is already being prioritized, this effect is already happening. What's challenging is that farmers aren't getting credit for it. There are farmers around the country that are doing this now without knowing it. And then, and the beautiful thing about the science discoveries, when the agronomy, the livestock nutrition, and the sustainability science are combined, it makes the picture a lot more clear.
John, if somebody wanted to find out more information about this, is there some place on the web that they can go and look and say, wow, that's pretty impressive data. I might want to consider making this change.
Well, there is. When this discovery came to light, we created a website called proactivism.com. Proactivism.com. And what this does is it tells the story of better feed, potential for more oil value, and also animal health benefits. I didn't mention earlier, but the scientists have found out that natural feed, it actually has a health benefit for the animals as well. So we covered that as well. And then the final factor that we looked at with proactivism.com is fighting malnutrition. There's almost 1 billion people right now that are malnourished, and I know a lot of farmers want to help with that. And this is an opportunity to increase the protein and maybe have a new conversation about the natural relationships between crops, livestock, and people.
Interesting. We'll look for that. We appreciate John Osthus being with us today, and appreciate you stopping by for Illinois Corn Connection. I'm Stu Ellis.
Thank you, sir.